We'll start with the four great bodhisattva vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to help them all. Delusions are countless. We vow to see through them all. Opportunities to awaken are infinite. We vow to see through them all. The Buddha way is endless. We vow to embody it. So we'll start with our 15-minute period of meditation. We'll chant the Gatha on opening the sutras. This Dharma, incomparably profound and minutely subtle, is rarely encountered even in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. Now we see it, hear it, hold and maintain it. May we completely realize the true mind of all Buddhas. All right, very good. Let's sit back, relax, and prepare ourselves to put palm to palm and welcome our Dharma brother, Robert Coho Epstein, for tonight's talk.
Thank you, and happy to be here with you tonight. The last time I had an opportunity to speak, I spoke rather obsessively about the fourth skanda, which has become a sticking point for me since I realized that it's the source of continuing generation of dukkha. It's the level of thought and emotion where more complicated complexes and proliferating thoughts and feelings are created. I'm sort of looking at that same phenomenon tonight from a slightly different angle. The nature of what you could call glibly positive and negative thoughts and feelings, more rightly called skillful or unskillful thoughts and feelings, or in some translations, wholesome or versus unwholesome. Wholesome, unwholesome, skillful, unskillful are both possible ways of translating the Pali word kusala, kusala and akusala. In the Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha talks about that process in the fourth foundation of mindfulness. So keeping that in mind, and I'll get back to it, there's a kind of overlay created by the mind through our thoughts and feelings. And something that I'm sure everyone who's practiced for a little while has noticed is that there's this kind of tension between the present moment and our thoughts and feelings and evaluations of the present moment that seem to have this kind of pull towards taking us away from, just simply what the moment is. It always is exactly itself, and it's always something. And we seem to have a mental / emotional response to whatever's happening in the moment of not being quite happy with it, not being quite satisfied, not thinking it's quite correct. The moment should be a little bit different. We should be a little bit different. It would be better if X was happening instead of Y. How come Y happened and Z didn't happen? And that seems to be a subtle but continual sort of drag on our happiness, and seems to be kind of a constant seed of dukkha, or suffering, inherent suffering from subtle to intense. And it seems to be in our, not in our source nature, but in our kind of human nature, our personality nature, to have this reaction of dissatisfaction and discontent with what is. And a lot of practice is about getting in touch with what is and accepting the moment as it is and for what it is, and then being able to appreciate the quality of the moment, its tathata, its its own actuality, and the energy that has to it. So if we look at the most immediate moment-to-moment expression of dukkha, the inherent suffering that we seem to bring to the table, sometimes more subtle, sometimes more intense. It comes in that form of dissatisfaction with the present moment, trying to get away in some way or another from what actually exists right now. And I guess from our actuality as we exist in the present. Part of what exists right now, if we start looking at the content, has to do with our concrete circumstances. So I may be having a meal or getting ready to go somewhere, keeping to a work schedule, getting ready for bed, things that I have to do, things that I'm involved with. And they may be going more or less okay. And when things seem to go wrong with those circumstances, then I get, more upset. But there's always perhaps a little bit of tension or anxiety about things going right and hoping that everything works out okay. So there's always a little dukkha even when things are going okay. And then I have what are seemingly internal events taking place. For most of us, unless we're, more advanced than me, those internal risings of thought and feeling are pretty continuous. And I think it's kind of in the nature of the mind to have those constant internal experiences, feelings, thoughts, commentaries, reactions that arise and fall away. They always fall away, but they then continue to arise. And many of those thoughts and feelings are not that happy and have that sense of dukkha to them, don't promote our happiness. So we may be a little bit unhappy or discontented about something that's taking place, whether things are going okay or not going okay. Spilling coffee on the nice rug, if something like that takes place, then we have a little bit more of a reaction, or having an argument with a family member. And these, what we could call negative events, take place pretty regularly too. Or I may just be upset about things that are going on internally. And those are a constant source of dukkha as well, reviewing past problems, relitigating things that have already happened, thinking about how much debt I'm in and worrying about money. That's a really popular one. And these things are internal ruminations. So they're not based on something happening right now, but they're continuing to cause turbulence and upset. And so that's generated from inside. And a lot of our unhappiness is generated through these sort of revolving, to use a more common word, sort of neurotic patterns of thought and feeling that don't really accomplish anything except to keep us in a fairly negative state. And hopefully through practice, we let go of some of that. And that's some of what I'm going to suggest. Here's another popular one: continuing the argument that I was having with someone after it's over. One of my favorites. Or even going back to an argument that I had 5 or 10 years ago and trying to, win it this time. This time I'm going to win the argument. And we may even notice what we're thinking or feeling, and get upset about that. So why am I reviewing this argument from 5 years ago? I shouldn't be doing that. I thought my practice was much more advanced than that. I shouldn't be going back to the past and worrying about that anymore. I'm over all that. I know the past isn't real. Why am I doing this? So I could get upset about things, not only things that aren't happening anymore, but about the fact that I'm thinking about things that aren't happening anymore. And that can lead to a kind of infinite regress where I can be pretty wound up continuously about being upset about being upset. Having more thoughts and feelings about my thoughts and feelings. And this cycle of unhappy thoughts and feelings all takes place by not being directly aware of what's actually happening, and instead being carried away by mental processes. But that's that pesky fourth skandha again, and it's also the fourth foundation of mindfulness that takes a look at that. getting involved in the cycle of thoughts and feelings, building on each other, using my favorite word, proliferating, and not really paying attention to the fact that much of that material is reactive and unnecessary and doesn't really accomplish anything. I may actually have a problem that I need to resolve or a conflict that I need to resolve, but the worrying about it and getting upset about it, whether it's happening now or it happened before, or I think it's going to happen in the near future, is not a necessary part of the process of dealing with it. And in fact, it usually makes things worse. So there are a few ways of identifying this unhappy process and perhaps helping it to subside or become a little bit easier to deal with. And obviously, in a general sense, our practice of meditation is very helpful with that, because we get a little bit of awareness and mindfulness and space with our experiences, and we can observe their nature a little bit more easily. But I'll just give a few specific aspects of that. So one way that the Buddha suggested that we can deal with this problem, and it's also very interesting just to notice that the mind even has this tendency to do this, because that's kind of intriguing in its own right. Why would we have or be given or develop these minds that are constantly worrying about stuff that's not necessarily there? It's kind of like revolving phantasms, and it's a strange sort of mental operation to be stuck with. So that's just sort of a separate thing to contemplate sometime. Why the mind has a tendency to be attracted to and revolve around these delusory forms of thinking. Delusions are endless, but why? So the Buddha suggests in the fourth foundation of Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness, that we can identify and use mindfulness, which is a great tool, to identify helpful and unhelpful thoughts, and to allow the less helpful ones to fade away and to give them less energy, while promoting the more skillful or wholesome thoughts and feelings. And the Buddha believed that if we pay attention and look at which thoughts are causing suffering and which ones seem to be more helpful and skillful, that we could actually give energy to the correct ones and let the other ones kind of be pushed away or subside, and give them less energy. So we can recognize unwholesome or unskillful thoughts, and that recognition, which itself is a form of awareness, can allow us to start choosing to abandon those less helpful thoughts and feelings and promote thinking that is more helpful. Buddha compared this process to the gradual refining of ore into gold. So you can see from that metaphor that it would take some work and some attention. You've got to take the ore of our thought processes and our good and bad thoughts and feelings that are all mixed together, and start refining and discerning which ones are which, and separating them out and seeing which ones we really want to keep. In the Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha says that through observation and contemplation, we can learn to observe what factors cause the arising or dissolution of pleasant and unpleasant feelings, ignorant or distracted or concentrated mental states, feelings of anger, agitation, remorse, doubt, and distress, all of which are on my greatest hits list, and whether they are present or absent. When these negative states are absent, that's good to acknowledge and promote too. We don't have to always focus on the negative. We can say, as Buddha says in parts of that sutta, he says, I can sometimes say to myself, hatred and delusion are absent from my thoughts right now. That's pretty cool. And so I can acknowledge that and enjoy a more positive state. Those are positive. There are positive thoughts and feelings that arise as well, and they are also promoted within meditation. We may be dealing with a lot of troublesome material at times that comes up in meditation and have to kind of process that or let it release and clear out. But meditation also promotes positive thoughts and feelings at times, and it's nice to allow those to be developed and cultivated. When the Buddha talked about the jhanas, which is the Pali word for dhyana, or dhyana as it's spelled out, which is the Sanskrit word for meditation, deep absorptive meditation, and the jhanas are gradually deepening samadhi states. Buddha identifies feelings and qualities that he considers positive ones, even though they're not the final goal, and says, these are good. When you start experiencing these positive feelings and thoughts and states of mind, that's a good sign. You can enjoy those and then go deeper. So in the first jhana, the first dhyana or samadhi state, you may find that you're able to engage in contemplation and examination of your current experience. And those words in Pali are known as vitakka and vikara. Those are two of my favorite mental factors, especially vitakka, which, if you look at the Abhidhamma, has all kinds of nice little qualifiers for it, like taking the object of attention and turning it around and weighing it, and examining it and feeling its qualities. So I think that's an interesting one to look into sometime, vitakka and also vikara. And emotional states like piti and sukha, which are forms of more intense or deeper and calmer joy or joyfulness that can be experienced in absorptive meditation. So while we don't want to get stuck on bliss feelings or joyful feelings and think that, I'm going to hang on to these and cling to them and make sure they never go away, that could lead to not too good things. But they're not bad to experience those as signs that you are relaxing and releasing into meditation and letting go of some of the more grosser negative states. So Dogen, who founded Soto Zen, and Suzuki Roshi after him and others after them, had another way of looking at thoughts that I thought was worth mentioning, sort of a nice a kind of complementary way of looking at it, along with what we've been talking about, the Buddha's way of looking at kusala and akusala, skillful and unskillful thoughts. And in their case, they just sort of cut through the analysis and just said, let's look at thoughts just as thoughts and not either cling to them or get involved with them and, think, this thought is really important. I have to analyze it further, or reject them and say, this thought is unpleasant. I got to get rid of it. But instead, just let them arise and fall away naturally. And we would just be the observer of the thoughts. So they use a nice metaphor of allowing thoughts to go by like clouds in the sky. And when you see a cloud, you could get involved in saying that cloud looks like a fish. And somebody else could say, no, that cloud looks like a bird. You're wrong about that. And you could get into a dispute about what kind of cloud it is, or if it's cumulus or one of the other scientific names for clouds. But the other thing you can do is just look at it and say, that's a cloud. And that's really a much simpler way of looking at clouds. You say, that's a cloud, and it goes by, and then it's replaced by another cloud as they go by in the sky, if there's a little bit of a breeze. And thoughts are like that too. They go by, and if we don't bother about them, they go away, and then another thought comes. So we can observe the thoughts that way without getting involved with that. Not only does that give us a little spaciousness and a little more relaxation and a little relief from saying, oh, that thought's about the fight I had with my uncle. Oh, I didn't resolve that. I better, get back to that and start thinking about that fight and upset myself. Instead, I say, no, actually, that's just a thought. I'm going to let it go. And so I can be in a more equanimous state of practicing that. So that's another way of looking at thoughts and feelings that allow them to subside and become less of a source of dukkha or suffering. And Suzuki Roshi had a nice little saying for that, which is a very nice Japanese style saying for that, which is leave your front and back door open so that thoughts can come and go freely. Kind of like having your house open, letting the guests come in and out. Just don't serve them tea. So he suggested that you don't have to fight the thoughts, you don't have to reject or accept them, but you don't want to meet and greet and get involved with them. So when we practice observing the coming and going of thoughts without attaching to them and without getting involved with them, it's much less likely that we'll get upset by them and start generating more unhappy thoughts and feelings. Another way to work with upsetting or snowballing thoughts and feelings is perhaps the most basic Zen approach of all, which is to stop putting your attention and energy into your thought and feeling process and put your attention on your breathing. And this also goes back to the most basic meditation technique taught by the Buddha in the Anapanasati Sutta, a little bit of a mouthful, which is the sutta on, or sutra on full mindfulness of the breathing. When you're paying attention to the breath, it's not only an indicator of what's going on with your mental and emotional state, but it's also a kind of a lever that you can use to resolve your mental and emotional state. So Buddha suggested that we simply note what the breath is doing. When you're breathing a short breath, you acknowledge it's a short breath. When you're breathing a long breath, you acknowledge it's a long breath. Is the breath rough or is the breath smooth? Is the breath nice and continuous or is it jagged? And by observing these qualities of the breathing has a tendency to relax and get a little slower and get a little smoother. And we might notice that if we practice that technique, basic meditation technique, that our thoughts and feelings also get a little more relaxed and a little smoother, and some of the more jagged thought processes start to fall away. So that's a third way of working with thoughts and feelings, just by going to the breath, which is our most basic connection to the life force, to our internal emotional state, to the nervous system. And it has a rather direct effect on what we're experiencing. The breath is both a great indicator of our mental and emotional state and a great lever to work gently with our current state of mind, just like these other techniques are nice levers to work with our state of thought and feeling. And it also, the breath in particular is something that we can bring from our meditation practice into life, because we can be walking down the street, and if we have the mindfulness to do it, we can pay attention to how we're breathing and see how we're thinking and feeling with that exercise in mindfulness, and to gradually reduce the suffering thoughts and feelings that we're generating and to increase our equanimity. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So we'll go back to another 15-minute period of seated meditation. chant the Heart Sutra. Mahaprajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing deeply the Prajna Paramita, perceives that all five skandhas are empty and is safe from all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. That which is form is emptiness. That which is emptiness, form. The same is true of feeling, perceptions, impulses, consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They do not appear or disappear, are not tainted or pure, do not increase or decrease. Therefore in emptiness, no form, no feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no color, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realm of mind, and so forth until no realm of mind consciousness, no ignorance, and also no extinction of it, and so forth until no old age and death, and also no extinction of them, no suffering, no origination, no stopping, no path, no cognition, also no attainment, with nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva depends on Prajna Paramita, and the mind is no hindrance. Without any hindrance, no fears exist. Far apart from every perverted view, one dwells in nirvana in the three worlds. All Buddhas depend on Prajna Paramita and attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajna Paramita is the great transcendent mantra, is the great bright mantra, is the utmost mantra, is the supreme mantra, which is able to relieve all suffering and is true, not false. So proclaim the Prajna Paramita mantra. Proclaim the mantra which says Gate Gate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha. Gate Gate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha. Gate Gate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha. Now it comes to the point where we have our dedication of personal merit. And we do this for the purpose of saving all beings, and we also do it for the purpose of getting away from our selfish I, me, my mindset. All sentient beings are one seamless body and pass quickly from birth to death. We remember those who cared for us and are gone. those who are ill, those who are at war, who are hungry and who are in pain. May they heal and have peace. We especially dedicate our service to Hengdal Chita, Brad Hunter, Joanna, Kevin and Bailey Sheridan, Laura Haas Knox, Mrs. Kanti Pereira, Melintha Pereira and family. Is there anyone you would like to add to our dedications tonight?
McGuire and Sean Swain.
Any others?
Young Jin Uson.
Any others? All beings in the 10 directions subject to the greed, hatred, and delusion of themselves and others. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Maha Prajna Paramita. We'll do our faith and practice vow. I will never retreat and will be firm in my mind in this correct Dharma. I will escape from the samsaric cycle of birth and death and definitely will see my original face. I will be sure to inherit the life of insight of the Buddha and save all beings. Life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly by and opportunities to awaken are easily lost. Strive to realize your true nature and do not squander your time by night or day. And thank you